Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Annie Vang. Annie is an iOS application developer. Annie has over 20 years of experience in application development, 10 plus years of mobile application development, and 10 plus years of web application development. Annie currently works for American Family Insurance as an iOS application developer. Annie is also the founder of Golden Fireflies LLC, which provides digital services. In addition, Annie developed an app called HmongPhrases to teach simple Hmong phrases to preserve the Hmong language. Annie also developed an app called Yumaholic to teach Southeast Asian recipes. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, we're very excited to learn more about your story today. So, Annie, tell us, what was your upbringing like? What was it like for you while you were growing up?
Sure. I was actually born in Thailand, a refugee camp in Thailand, and came to the United States when I was 2 years old. So I don't not have any memories of Thailand at all. But I grew up in a small little town called Pella, Iowa, and I didn't speak any English. I learned I learned English by watching public access TV, watching Sesame Street and Big Bird and so on and so forth. So I self-taught myself English by watching TV. But I didn't speak any because Hmong was my first language and I didn't speak any English. So I had a really rough adolescence, not being able to speak English properly, talking with an accent. I was quite bullied a lot. And also suffered a lot of identity issues because I didn't really know that I was different. Because no one really tells you that you're different until someone tells you that you look different or you speak different, and that really affected me a lot deeply as a child. So I really just tried speaking English and not speak Hmong at all growing up, except my parents spoke it to me. So that's kind of been like most of my life, just really like not knowing who I was and being really confused. And also there was some parts of my life where I actually felt very ashamed to be Asian American, very ashamed to be Hmong, just because I didn't see other people that looked like me besides my cousins. And I think that in my youth that deeply affected me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm so sorry to hear that you had that experience. And I think a lot of either Asians who were, born in America or Asians who are immigrants in America, they go through the same problems too, right? And I think, like, especially for myself, like, similarly, I also felt very, ashamed to be Asian. I think a lot of people go to school, bring their Asian foods and lunches to school, and they're ashamed that, their lunch is smelly or something like that. I remember there was this one time where my mom had dropped me off to my friends right before school, and my mom would speak to me in Chinese, and I would kind of be ashamed because Chinese people, they speak very loudly. It's very, abrupt. It's very loud. And so I didn't want her to like say anything to me as she was dropping me off to school. And so I just told her to to be quiet and like don't say anything because I know she would say things very loudly. But now looking back, it's like I wish I didn't feel like that. I feel so bad for feeling like that, because I love my language. Like I wish that I spoke it a lot more. So that's just a very, very interesting perspective. And I think that a lot of Asians often feel like that, right?
Yes, yes, I totally related to what you just said right there. Especially because I think a lot of times, like I said, I didn't remember Thailand at all. My parents were not born in Thailand; they were born in Laos, and so it was different because I would get told to go back to your country, but I didn't know my country. That we Hmong people
Yeah.
don't have a country. We just live anywhere in Southeast Asia where we could find some peace. So that was really difficult and challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hmong people are one of the most marginalized groups, right? And a lot of people didn't even really know about Hmong people. I think there was like a big, kind of knowing and like knowledge that happened about the Hmong ethnic group when Sunisa Lee, made headlines. And then everyone started like kind of looking into like, oh, who is the Hmong community? And I guess that was like a good thing that came out of that experience. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't even know who Hmong people are, and it's so important that we put that out there and make people realize and learn more about the Hmong community. So I do want to talk about, just your experience, growing up in the US and how you kind of, went through your job experience and then what made you decide like this Hmong Phrases app was something that the community and the world needed.
Sure. So I'm going to take you way back into my childhood.
Yeah, of course.
Just because I grew up, didn't have many friends. I often found myself like reading a lot of books, reading encyclopedias, spending a lot of time, alone time in the public library. And in sixth grade, that's kind of when I met my first Apple computer in the classroom. I really took an interest in playing Oregon Trail, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, learning how to type. Like that was all really new and fascinating to me. And, because I didn't have a lot of friends, I just felt like, computers actually was the very first thing that really brought me happiness, really brought me into a space where I really enjoyed, going on the little adventures in the game and exploring the characters because, I think as a young child, you need to socially connect to something, and that was my connection. And so for the next few years, I would take every single computer class possible under the in class, and even though they were just typing classes, I didn't care as long as I got to type on the computer. That was awesome. I really wanted to build games and make. And I did not know what the word application was back in the old days, but just working in the computer, and I wanted to build things in the computer. But I did have a teacher that told me that, I would not be successful in that because I'm not a boy and I wasn't a genius. And that was extremely heartbreaking, embarrassing. And I really self-doubted myself at that point, especially because I was looking to her as an authority figure, someone that, probably knew me better than I knew me, right? And so that really disheartened me. But I think I just took that passion of love of computers secretly, and I just kind of suppressed it. Still did it on my own. Still pursued. As computers were evolving, I was still learning on my own, still doing it on my own time. But that, just hearing somebody tell you can't do it, because I think I felt like my whole life people kept telling me I couldn't do things because of this or of that, or most likely because I was a girl, and especially because I didn't look like your typical person that would ever succeed, right? So I felt really bad about myself, but there was just something deep inside me that I think the passion of and love computers just never went away. And eventually, I was doing web work in my day-to-day job. I did have a manager that told me that, hey, Annie, you're really good at this. You should go back to school. And at that time, I was like in my 20s, late 20s. And I was thinking like, really? I at that point, I felt like I could do it, but like having someone else like say something positive for a change really affected me, because even though I was doing web work on the job, I wasn't respected for it, because I didn't have the education. I didn't have the education. I didn't hold the job title. And so I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, I think if it's now or never. I'm not getting any younger. And at that point, I was also a young mom. I had a son. And so I decided this is going to be, I talked with my husband, and I decided this is something that I want to try and want to do. So I went back to school, late as an adult. I think I was about 26 years old when I went back to school. That's like really old. I thought I was going to be like the oldest person in college, but I was really surprised that I wasn't. So I went to the local technical college here in Madison College. And I saw that like, oh my gosh, there's a ton of people that are like from all different ages, all different walks of life. And I thought, hey, I think this is a good possibility. So for the first 10 years of my life, I was doing web development. I work for an insurance company here in Madison, Wisconsin. And so I was doing that for a long time. But then when the iPhone first came out, I thought that was just so fascinating that I thought, hey, I think maybe I could do something in this. Like maybe it was kind of scary to change careers at this point, because I originally thought, oh, I'm just going to be a web developer for forever, right? But then I thought, but this other area really interests me too. And so I went back to school to take like an advanced certificate in iPhone development. And as part of my class project, at the end was to build an app. And my teacher said to me, build something that even if you didn't get paid for, you never made any money, something that you're passionate about, build that. And I thought, okay. And then also at the same time, Apple's advertising campaign at the time was like, there's an app for that, right? They have an app for everything. So I thought, oh, well, I did a search and I was like, there's no app for Hmong. Let me try that. So I had already compiled like, a list. Pretty much when I tell everybody how my app started, I was like, it started from an Excel spreadsheet. That's what it was. I just had the English word and Hmong words, in my dialect and also our Hmong white dialect. So my native dialect is Hmong green. And so started as a spreadsheet and I just kept adding to it. And as you know, because I could speak it, but I was not very good at writing it or writing out the words. And my reading was, I would say, it was good, but not proficient at all. So it was kind of like a study guide. I always felt like this was kind of like a personal gift that I was doing for myself. And at the time, I didn't think anybody would ever use it. I just wanted to build it and go through the process of how to distribute an app into the App Store and launch it. And I was really surprised, like the first week that I had it out and I was just spreading it to like family and friends, that people started downloading it. And that really motivated me that like, hey, I'm trying to cement my place in this world, trying to put Hmong on the map somewhere digitally, and also, have it available in both, in Hmong white and Hmong green. And that's kind of where the story started. I would say that like, it was just also fun to like, tell my friends, hey, you want to learn Hmong? Here's a quick way for you to interact with it. And I really liked app development because it allowed users to interact with the device and at their own pace and the privacy of their own home and practice. My first actual project for school, I just want to clarify, but it wasn't HmongPhrases. It was two other apps called Hmong to English and English to Hmong. And there was no audio. It was just pretty much a direct translation of what the English word was to the Hmong words. And that got my feet wet into the app world. And that's kind of where it's taken off. And I also started doing YouTube at the same time in 2009, 2010, around there. And I was really trying to just embrace like myself being Hmong and what I could do to share my culture, my recipes, just because we're such also an oral language, but also with recipes, we never measure and write stuff down. And so I was like, okay, let me take the liberty of doing this because sometimes it's really hard when you ask for a recipe, it's really hard to tell people how to make a recipe if you don't have measurements and don't have instructions. So that's kind of where all my journey went. And then I eventually launched another app called Yumaholic, which is my Southeast Asian cookbook. And our foods are, it has like traditional Hmong recipes, but also like our Hmong take on other popular Southeast Asian cuisine. And that's kind of where my app journey has been.
That's amazing. I mean, the last point about the recipes, especially Asian recipes, is so true and accurate because whenever I'm trying to get a recipe from like my mother, she would like tell me all of these recipes and ingredients in Chinese. I'm like, I can't remember all of this, and I have to like take pictures of each one and take the picture of the label and everything. It's so confusing. So I'm glad you're entering into that space and giving that knowledge to other people. But wow, that like there's so much to break down there. I just wanted to say that's incredibly impressive, and I'm so amazed at your journey because the person who had told you that you wouldn't be able to succeed in this space because you are a woman, because you didn't have the knowledge or the education, like those kind of words, like they really do hurt, right? And then when there is someone who tells you like, I think you're good at something, you can possibly become successful in this space doing this, like that makes all the difference. And it really is like a mental thing when someone tells us we can do it versus telling us that we can't do it. It makes all the difference. And with you just having all of these things that were happening in your personal life too, like you already had your child, and a lot of people actually when they see mothers have children, that's also like a stereotype too. Like they have these like narratives or like preconceptions or misconceptions that like we can't do it because we're a mother or something like that. So I just wanted to commend you for all that you were able to carry on your back and still push through based on your passions and everything like that. And it's just so amazing what you're building, because I do see a lot of people in the Asian community kind of lose touch with their Asian language and their Asian culture. And it's just natural because we are in America, we're, talking and speaking in English every single day. And, especially when we're like moving away or moving out of our own home, like moving away from our parents, we just speak less of our Asian language, right? And it's like we only see our relatives maybe like once a month or so, and we just kind of lose touch of that. And I love the fact that you're building something so that people can get reconnected with their cultural heritage and their language. I do want to know though, because we all know obviously Hmong ethnic group and community is like one of the most marginalized groups in the US. How were you able to kind of like spread the word and the message of your app outside of your friends and family, or was it like a natural progression, like people just like did word of mouth and people just started picking up on it and learning about the app?
So I think for like the actual marketing of it, just because like I think I was always raised to like um do things in the background, not really self-promote, not to your own horn. So that was actually a very difficult challenge for me to self-promote. I guess because I think it's in my culture, it's kind of seen as like you don't ever really boast or brag about yourself. You do what you can and hopefully wish and hope that other people notice and then praise you for that. And so that's kind of been a really hard thing for me. Because with the app, I've been trying to self-promote it, like, on Facebook, on social media, and then also like, other like Hmong communities, Hmong groups on Facebook, to get it out there. It has been had been a real challenge to kind of like get it out there into like the mainstream, where people know if they're not actively searching in the app store for certain key phrases that I have tied to my app, then they wouldn't find me. The actual time when I actually start to gain traction, sad to say, but great, was in 2021. I went to Apple's entrepreneur camp. I was selected, and I was the only one from the United States. So there was like women selected all around the world, women entrepreneurs selected into this entrepreneur camp to get specialized one-on-one help from the Apple engineers and Apple staff. And with that, I think that with all the things that I've learned at the eCamp and the wealth of knowledge and the support and just the amazing talent that all the people that was participating in the event, that I think that propelled me and like really launched me into like believing harder in myself and what I was trying to accomplish in the world. And from that experience, thankful for that I'm here able today to be able to speak to you on this podcast, that I'm just so grateful for the opportunities to have people know that I'm out there, to listen to my story, to find out who I am and what my mission and what my purpose is.
That's amazing. And I think the most like touching thing about the app is that I don't know if you're still doing it now, but I know I was reading an article when you first started HmongPhrases, you were the one who was actually recording your own voice and doing those translations. Are you still doing that today?
Oh yeah, I'm still
Oh,
one
wow.
one woman show. Yeah, I still do the translations and the voiceovers, and I'm hoping someday that I would be able to have a team that would help me. But unfortunately, for right now, with my limited resources, it's still just all me. I do have some help though. I can't take the credit all alone. My husband does help me with like testing. My parents do help me proofread and find other phrases that are commonly used in our daily conversations. And so it's been fun, and it's been a great ride, like having like my sisters also, and my brothers also like contribute, maybe not code wise can't contribute, but especially just help me with testing and checking things over. It's been a family affair.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible though. I love it. And I feel like it creates more of like a sense of community when people are knowing that the founder is the one who's doing the actual translations. It just kind of creates more of like a sentimental and intimate experience. I do want to know, what is the most touching feedback that you've received from a user? You must have, I know that you have people who want to reconnect with their Hmong identity, but I'm sure there are also a lot of people who are not Hmong or who are non-Asian who also want to learn the Hmong language, right? And so I'm sure you receive a lot of feedback as well. What is the most touching feedback that you have received?
So it was probably back in 2000. I want to say, I can't remember the exact date, but it was at least longer than 5 years ago. Before I rewrote my app in Swift UI, it was a user that had contacted me and told me that my audio wasn't working. And of course, with with positive feedback, you try to make your app better, but also with negative feedback, you have to know that like, oh, there's things that I need to fix and make it better for that user. So we tried everything we could to install, uninstall, try to get sound working on his device, but it just wasn't successful. And I felt terrible about it for many years, because we tried to troubleshoot the issue, but we just couldn't, like, it's like when you have a bug and you're trying to find it so that you can fix it, but then it only affected a certain amount of users and not everyone. And so we couldn't reproduce it. So when I finally rewrote my app and launched it to the store, he was the first person I thought of. And, and I immediately reached out to him and said, hey, I'm very sorry it's taken me a long time, but can you try downloading the software, the update for the app, because I have a new release out. And he emailed me back because I wasn't sure. Like I was like, after 5 years, I was like, is he still even a user? Is he still around? I don't know. But I was pleasantly surprised that he responded and said, thank you. The sound works great. And he was really excited. He was really happy. And I felt terrible that it had been like 4 or 5 years that we couldn't get it to work for him. But it finally was working for him. And I think that has been really rewarding, because that just reminds me that, I still have to, continue making improvements, continue troubleshooting and finding bugs in the app and squashing them and making sure that it works for them. And that was very touching to me. That's one story. Another story, I would say that that really touched me are just the maybe second and third generation Hmong Americans who perhaps, they grew up with the luxury of having grandparents and parents that spoke Hmong to them, but they primarily did not know how to speak it back to the elders, and they mostly spoke English. And I had someone write to me saying that she was very happy that the app was able to, help her learn very basic phrases that she could respond back to her grandmother. And when she did that, it was really, she felt really happy that she could, practice it. Because I think with language and how you pronunciations and your fluency, people look at you differently when you can't pronounce words correctly or you don't know how to say certain phrases. And it can be kind of a little bit embarrassing and then a little bit discouraging when you aren't saying it properly. And so I liked it when the user said that it allowed her to practice in secret and practice alone and get just to kind of like work on the sounds and being able to say it back and then surprise them, because they're wondering like, where did you learn this from? So that was also really what I get a lot of comments like that. Actually, those are some of the more like common ones that I get about just, being able to connect one generation to the next generation. And that means like so much to me.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that just made me feel so like heartwarmed inside, because I couldn't speak to my grandmother on my mom's side because she spoke a different dialect of Chinese. And so even, like throughout her whole life, I wasn't able to speak to her because I never picked up on that dialect. And that just makes me feel so sad. Only if like there was something like an app like yours, for that dialect, that would be so amazing. But I absolutely agree with you. I think even if you like try to translate words into Google Translate, it's not the same. Like it doesn't translate correctly. And so you really do need to know like the exact tones or, the exact translation for you to be able to like communicate effectively to other people in that language. Yeah. Okay. So I want to know personally, just to kind of switch up the conversation a little bit to you and ask you, how have you personally grown? Or, what are some of the things that you learned about yourself on this journey while building an app like this? And what kind of like, did you learn more about your cultural heritage? Did you learn more about your family? What are just some of the things that you have, learned or, grown to learn more about yourself during this journey?
Sure. I think the primary growth, like the most growth that I've had in this area of like the app journey is just I want to say just feeling pride for being Hmong. Because I think that I always say that like my first like 20 years of my life, I was like self-denying who I really was and not accepting, I felt ashamed of who I was, not accepting where I came from, because I also grew up very poor, not having like a lot of resources. And so I had to really rely on like my imagination and my curiosity to create things that I couldn't like, I couldn't buy like with money, right? And so, with even the encouragement of like what my teacher had told me about doing things and building things that you have full passion for, even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still be proud and be happy that you made something and you gave a contribution to the world. And I think that has been my greatest value of the work that I do and the years of I would say blood, sweat, tears, but the years of dedication into an app that I truly believed in, that you know was a gift to myself that I could give to others. It has definitely been a difficult journey, just because um, you know I'm a type of person that I felt that I've always had really low self-esteem about myself growing up, just because I felt like I didn't belong in this world. I didn't belong anywhere. It was just a place of, I was really just trying to find my purpose and trying to find my footing. Like I felt really lost in the world. And I think, okay, getting a little emotional here, but
No, no worries.
I just feel that, this is actually a really good journey for myself to kind of put myself back on track of like, I do have a purpose, and I do have great skills and talents that I can contribute to the world. And if I could use technology, the technology stack that I learned, to do this, then do it. And I think that's a strength for me, because I suffered a lot from, um, you know, I, s- I suffered a lot from, like, also like depression, and a lot of just insecurities about who who I was, and what what my value was to the world. And I think as a young girl, I think when you're told that you can't be someone, you're told that you can't do anything, or that you'll never be good enough, that really hurts. And by doing this, I feel
Hey.
um, I just feel really proud of where I've come. Like, the journey has been long and hard, but super rewarding at the same time, because um, it's been probably
You're doing amazing.
it's probably been 20 years in the making of being a developer and not being seen, and to finally be seen, and to be recognized. I know that I have value, and that means a lot to me.
I'm cheering up too. Annie, you are doing an amazing job. And I just wanted to say and thank you for, doing what you do, because you're absolutely right. When someone tells you that, you're not going to be able to succeed when you can't do it. And I think a lot of us go through those experiences as Asians living in America. We just have so much pressure. There's like that concept of like, work hard, work hard, work hard. You aren't worth anything unless you have XYZ or anything like that, which is not true at all. But when someone actually tells you like you can't do something, you actually start to believe it. It's the concept of auto-suggestion, right? And for us to have a community and have this sense of like belonging and a group of people that we can confide in and have commonality with, and just to support each other, it means so much, right? And a lot of us as Asians, we go through, so many instances where we don't feel like we are seen. Even for myself as an Asian living in America, and I grew up in America, I often feel like I'm too Asian here, right? And then when I go back to Asia, they can definitely tell that I'm not a native, and they can definitely tell that I wasn't born there. And so I'm being treated there differently as well. And all of our stories are often told told inaccurately, told incorrectly. And that's why a lot of us feel like our voices aren't being heard. But a lot has been changed in the past couple of years, right? And I feel like, sadly to say, it was like due to the pandemic, and a lot has changed, but you are definitely doing so much to reconnect people back to their cultural heritage, and finding what you were good at, which was developing and mixing it with what you were passionate about, which is your Hmong identity, right? And combining those two things, it really, really kind of created this like sweet spot for you. And I'm just so happy and glad that you are changing the lives of so many other people too, not only in the Hmong community, but people who want to learn more about Hmong culture and Hmong identity. It's it's incredible and it's very, very monumental what you are doing. So I just wanted to thank you for being vulnerable on this podcast and just making a difference for all of us.
Thank you so much. I think I wanted to add that, especially in my culture, because girls are not they're not praised as much. Especially when I was, coming here as a first generation Hmong American. My parents did the best job that they could, but they still had the old mentality of the girls in the old country, where they didn't invest in as much as they would in a daughter than they would a son.
Yeah.
But I'm very blessed because now that I'm able to use my skills and build apps. My mom and my dad are extremely proud of me, and they love and they tell other people about what I can do and my capabilities, and that makes me feel very, very proud that even as a daughter or a girl, that I can amount to something, because growing up I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're showing other people in the community, either like the younger generation or people outside of the Hmong community, you're showing them that it's possible to do something like this too. And you're definitely making waves in the Hmong community. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I do have a couple of last questions for you, Annie. And um, I guess I want to know, like, what is next for you? You have HmongPhrases, you've developed a number of apps already. You have your YouTube channel showing the community, more about Hmong culture, Hmong foods, and everything like that. So what's really next for you in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Sure. So for me, my professional day job is I am an iOS application developer. I'm at the point of my career where I love making apps. That's what I do every day, and it brings me joy and brings me strength. I'm still working on another application, a card game that my husband plays, with friends. It's a social card game, and so I really want to help him make something. He knows how to play the game and knows all the business rules. So he's like my business analyst that tells me the requirements of what to build. So I've been working with my husband on that, and spending time with him to build this and to making it come to life has been a great journey. And also I have a huge features list of things that I wanted to add to my cookbook and also to my HmongPhrases app. That I'm still working on, hopefully bringing it over to Android and adding more features to the application to make it better for the end users. So those are some of the goals and things that I've been working on, hopefully to launch before the end of 2022. But I'm continuing to do that, and I think someday in the future for me, I'm also considering maybe teaching and trying to get more students into IT, into tech, and being able to see me, because I think that's very important that you sometimes see other people in that space to give you that support. And I really want to be that for others.
Yes, I love it, especially minority women and Asian women. Like that's so needed. More representation is needed for us. So I love that you're doing that. Okay, so one last question. What advice would you have for someone who is trying to get more in touch with their cultural heritage?
Sure.
Or it could be, someone who's also building an app as well.
I would say that, like, for the advice for someone who wants to build an app, I want to say that no idea, big or small, is too small. So even some of the smallest ideas can lead and have the greatest impact on the lives of others. And so if you have a dream, just follow it and do it. I want to say there may be blockers or other forces that may prevent you from reaching your goal, but just continue on your journey to believe in yourself and be devoted and dedicated to what you want to accomplish. And for those who want to get back in touch with their identity or their roots, I would say that connect with others, even if it's not building an app, just being able to be in social groups and being able to talk and conversate and learn more about your culture, but also being able to share with others who you are and bring yourself to also show them what you can do, what your talents are, and just embrace who you really are. Because I think I I know I sometimes feel like I have deep regret that for so long I didn't know who I was and deeply suppressed that feeling. But I think it's never too late. You're never too old, never too young to find out who you are. And sometimes you're gonna be on this journey and discovery over and over again. It's totally okay because we're evolving and we're growing, and feeling comfortable in your skin is really important. And just being able to find that inner peace and happiness of of growing, because I think that growth is something that sometimes we're going to be stretched to the point where we feel very, very uncomfortable. But that means you're growing, because if you don't feel uncomfortable, you're not really growing. And I think that's been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is to grow. And I'm still growing every day.
That's amazing advice. And I agree. It's never too late. Like you mentioned, when you had went to school to learn how to develop apps, you thought you were going to be, one of the oldest ones there, even though there would be people at all ages who are still on their, self-development journey. So just keep that in mind. And that's really great advice. So thank you so much, Annie. And where can our listeners learn more about you and Hmong phrases online?
Sure, they can go to my website. It's just annievang.com, or they could find me on YouTube. I have a cooking channel called Hmong Food, so you can search me up there. And I'm also on all social media. So I like having friends, so please add me.
Awesome. We will leave all of that in the show notes of this episode. Annie, thank you so much for coming on to our show today. It was amazing hearing your story.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course.